Before we begin today, a brief content warning. One of the episodes we will be looking at today is the Season 6 episode Alpha, which does contain the death of at least 2 dogs. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Things Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And that's it for news again.
Yeah, it's been a quiet couple of weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I've finished the next episode for Patreon.
Oh, cool.
So we're episode 4 up now.
That's our Let's Play of the FMV game.
Yes. So that's, the fourth part of the Let's Play. The fifth one will be the last part, and, more deaths. Well, what say we move somewhere nicer? I know, I don't want... No, can we not move to the gated community? No, I don't want to go there. No, and so forth.
It's one of your most abstract segues yet.
Probably, yeah. I mean, I don't want to live there.
Well, Arcadia is apparently named for a Greek city that was known for its peace and tranquility.
The irony. We're in California to go visit, to move into a new area. It's like perfectly manicured lawns. Every single sodding house looks exactly the same as the one next to it. Oh my god.
It's an unthinkable thing when you live in a UK city, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it actually puts me in mind of the web series Gale, where they get trapped in the new development and can't find their way back out again. It's like, I feel that if you went into Arcadia, you'd never find your way out again.
I actually spent Christmas once staying with some friends in a gated community in Florida, and it is like another world.
Scary.
Yeah, it's a bit uncanny.
Well, okay, so Arcadia then is directed by Michael Watkins, written by Daniel Arkin, and first broadcast on the 7th of March 1999. There are so many people in this episode.
Really?
They've been in a lot of stuff.
Okay.
So, Peter White plays Gene Gogolak. He was in, and I'm going to explain this one, he was in Dave, and he was also in Armageddon.
Okay.
In Dave, he plays the Secretary of Commerce. In Armageddon, he plays the Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
He just apparently looks like a person who works in the US government. He's also in Flubber.
Oh.
And Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Of course, the big one was Abraham Ben-Ruby, who played Big Mike, who's most famous for ER.
Yeah.
He's also in Twister.
Okay.
George of the Jungle. Well, I had no idea this character was called that. He's called Thor. He's one of the henchmen.
Oh, okay.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
Never seen it, but Robot Chicken, where he plays Darth Vader.
Oh.
Community. World of Warcraft.
Oh, who's in WoW?
It's just additional voices.
Okay.
But Skylanders.
Aww.
Additional voices as well. There's Tom Gullop, who plays Win Schroeder, who was in Jerry Maguire, AI, Insidious Chapter 3,
Okay.
Seinfeld, and the original American Horror Story.
Ah.
Marnie McPhail, who plays Cammy Schroeder, who was, and this made me laugh, she's in Star Trek Borg, and Star Trek Voyager, and First Contact. Deborah Christopherson, as Pat Verlander, was in Wild Wild West.
Oh.
Salem's Lot, in the 2022 version.
Okay.
And American Horror Story Asylum.
Ah.
Tim Bagley played Gordy, who was in The Mask, Austin Powers the Spy Who Shagged Me, Day After Tomorrow, Seinfeld, Third Rock from the Sun, Pushing Daisies, where he was Colonel Lickin.
Ah.
And he was also in episodes. Tom Virtue played Dave Klein, who's in this episode for all of 3 minutes. He's in Iron Man 3, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Star Trek Voyager, Malcolm in the Middle, Firefly. He's in Arrested Development and sold Michael Bluth 3 successive cars.
Oh, it's that guy. I thought he looked familiar.
Yeah. American Horror Story again. Resident Evil Village.
Who's he in Village?
He's one of the villagers who dies right at the start.
Oh, okay.
You know that brief point where Ethan meets the actual inhabitants? He's one of them. Not Moreau. He's not one of the actual lords of the village or anything. I think he's just one of the villagers.
All right.
And playing his wife, Juliana Donald plays Nancy Klein. We've observed before that we get a lot of anime dub actors in the X-Files.
Oh, who have you got?
Well, she was in Castle of Cagliostro as the waitress.
Oh.
Dirty Pair OVAs, 2 different ones.
All right.
3 Times 3 Eyes again. She's also in Muppets Take Manhattan. She's in Dragnet, a film I've never seen but I'm very curious about, called Brain Donors.
Fair enough.
Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and also Star Trek Borg.
Ah,
Weird cast reunion in this. And Babylon 5.
do you have a synopsis for this episode?
I do. At the Falls of Arcadia, a fictional planned community in San Diego County, California, disgruntled homeowner Dave Klein arrives at home to find a package from an unknown person. The package contains a tacky whirligig, which Klein puts on his roof to annoy the neighbours. That night, Klein hears the whirligig stop, and then an intruder enters his home. As he goes to investigate, he is then killed shortly after his wife is murdered by the same mysterious creature. Mulder and Scully investigate the Klein's disappearance, going undercover as new homeowners under the aliases Rob and Laura Petrie. They move in late in the day and are helped by a vast array of neighbours who urgently get all their belongings stowed away before 6 o'clock that night. This is reportedly so they do not breach the community's CCNRs. While settling in, the agents begin searching the house and find what appears to be blood on the blade of a ceiling fan. Later that night, the new neighbours are discussed by members of the neighbourhood. Big Mike, one of them, wants to let the Petries know the consequences of breaking the CCNRs. However, Homeowner Association President Gene Gogolak describes him as a weak link to be dealt with. That night, one of the lights on his external lamps is turned off, and Big Mike is presumed killed by a large creature that's barely glimpsed. The next day, Mulder and Scully have dinner with the Schroders, and Scully accompanies Cammy Schroeder on a walk of her dog Scruffy and finds Big Mike's necklace in a storm drain. Scruffy's face is covered in a substance that looks like blood. Mulder and Scully discuss the possible motives for the Klein's presumed murder, and Scully goes to have the substance analysed in San Diego. Mulder decides to theorise about non-compliance with CCNRs by sticking a plastic flamingo into the yard and damaging his mailbox, trying to observe who will fix them. After both have been removed and fixed respectively, Mulder finds a note in his mailbox saying, "Be like the others before it gets dark." After dark, Mulder brings out a basketball hoop and attempts to play on it. Schroeder runs over to frantically argue with Mulder to put it away. Meanwhile, something comes out of the grass at Mrs. Schroeder, and who screams? Mulder chases away, but they all notice their light has burned out, much like Big Mike's. Schroeder convinces Gogolak, accusing him of trying to kill his family. Instead, Schroeder is told Rob Petrie is the real problem. Mulder begins to believe that a creature kills the homeowners, moves through the yard under the grass. Scully shares her lab results of the blood on the ceiling fan and on the dog is actually grime, as the neighbourhood is built on top of an old landfill. Mulder, however, believes the Kleins were buried in their front yard, so the next day he gets a backhoe to dig it up, telling the neighbours he's putting in a reflecting pool which is not against the CCNRs. Mulder does not find the Kleins, but they do find the tacky whirligig that had been previously delivered to the Kleins before they were killed. Whirligig bears a label from Gogolak's import company. As Scully calls for a forensic team to come out there immediately, she hears something in the house. She discovers her gun is missing, but as the creature comes up the stairs, she encounters Big Mike, who hides Scully, telling her that it's coming for her. He fights with the creature and attempts to shoot it, but is unable to damage it before he is killed. Mulder confronts Gogolak about marking the Kleins for death by giving them the tacky whirligig, and says that the creature is in fact a tulpa, a Tibetan thought form, that Gogolak has conjured to assure compliance with the CCNRs. Mulder arrests the disbelieving man and handcuffs him to a mailbox and goes to find Scully. Cuffed to the mailbox, Gogolak begs for help, knowing the creature is coming. The creature attacks him, and as he dies, it disintegrates into dirt. Scully comes outside too late to see the creature, the remnants of which are at Mulder's feet.
Thank you.
There are times when you can sort of point to something and just say, well, this is satire.
And this is one of those times?
And this is one of those times. The other thing that sort of came to me while reading the synopsis again is, like, it's an interesting one you can connect back to Twin Peaks, given that Twin Peaks explicitly mentions tulpa in one episode.
This is true.
And oddly, it's not going to be the last tulpa we're going to see.
No, there's one quite far in the future, I seem to remember.
Yeah, and that one is probably not quite as fun as this one.
No.
I do like the concept of we're going to enforce compliance in our community by using a Tibetan thought form. And we've lost control of it.
I'm not sure it's even that he even had control of it. It's kind of acting on an idea because it's a thought form.
Yeah, and I don't know how tulpa work at the best of times, but just trying to summon it to enforce a set of community standards. And you got to wonder can you update the standards, or when you summon it, is that it?
I'm not sure tulpas were designed with a specific
No.
situation in mind, but I believe the idea of it's kind of a bit like the golem legend.
Okay.
But it's the idea of it's the strength of your convictions can make a physical entity. Like you see, so this one is just an absolute adoration to the rules,
Yeah.
has created this thing that will follow this to a T and kind of rules lawyer everything around them. So if anyone breaks even the tiniest of rules, it will respond with capital force.
Yes. One of the slight nuisance things, I think, and I think it's a problem with the TV format, because you want it in a longer form thing, you could do it, which is there's no sense of escalation of the tulpa. Like, if it started just spooking people or showing up on to be menacing, the fact it's leapt straight to murder as your enforcement mechanism.
I think that would be what it would do, though.
Yeah.
Because, that's how this rule works. It's kind of like, if they do X, you respond with Y sort of logic to it. It's always been this brutality, but it's the idea of, is this worth it to live in this perfect utopia?
Yeah.
It's like those who walk away from Omelast sort of logic to it.
It very much is, but at the same time, it's if you don't tell the people moving into a community that this is what's going to happen, they're going to still see the rules as a thing of, oh, we might get a fine or something.
Yeah, you do hear stories, because we don't really have homeowner associations in the UK.
Thankfully.
But you hear these horror stories about how they go nuclear on the residents for something tiny. There was a famous one during lockdown of some guy who built a tree house on his property for his kids that was set well back away from the road, but one person could see it while walking their dog and caused absolute hell about this tree house existing.
Yeah, it's like, why do people not have time for something else?
Mm.
I mean, wasn't that one of the inspirations?
Yeah, it was a direct experience that Arkin had when he moved into a homeowner association community, where there was some sort of mistake and the moving crew didn't get there in time. So he did get moved in, but outside of this cut-off time he didn't know, because it was within a 300-page rule book.
Yeah.
And so they fined him $1,000 on the day he moved into the community for breaking the rules already.
And that's when he moved out again immediately.
But you kind of see that recreated in this episode right at the start, where Mulder and Scully are late getting there and the entire community rushes in to get them moved into the house, evidently before the tulpa can trigger.
Yeah, it does beg the question, though, of, like, the neighbours and, like, Big Mike and the Schroders and everyone know this is what's going to happen. The fact that you don't just tell the people coming in it's very much, it's the different thing between giving them a binder full of rules saying you have to adhere to these, versus you have to adhere to these, oh, by the way, the mechanic is you will be killed. You can try and go to the police, but it's not going to help.
Well, they even kind of say it. It's Big Mike, before he gets targeted, says that he thinks it would be fair to let them know about it.
Yeah.
And Gogolak overrides him.
And it gets, so how do you expect them to just do this? I know well, guessing that Gogolak's meant to be someone who just views the rules as sacrosanct and believes that if you follow the rules, if he churns through enough people, eventually he'll get someone who will just follow the rules and behave perfectly.
Just because they want to be there,
yeah.
and then they can be admitted into the inner circle and learn the truth at the heart of Omelas.
Yeah. At the same time, though, it's the whole, how many people are you willing to sacrifice for this to actually get to the point where that happens?
You also have the kind of similarity, because I think Mike refers to the creature as the Übermensch. So you've also got that parallel with kind of strict Nazi law in there. You're the kind of person who would make, because Übermensch is the Superman, the Nazi ideal.
Yes. Yeah, definitely some of that as well. And just the weird mysticism as well. I do kind of like Gogolak when Mulder accuses him of everything, although, we're going to have to just take Mulder as read that he was right about this, given what we see. But Gogolak there just sort of mocking him, saying, my lawyers can make you look so stupid. Sort of, yes, they are, Mulder. You cannot take him to court with this.
I think the only thing you can really get him on is having this community that's built over a landfill site.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's too blatant or not. The fact that, the perfect housing community is built on landfill.
It's a bit like an updating of the Poltergeist, and we built it all on a burial ground.
Yeah, although I think isn't the critical point about Poltergeist, although it gets weirder, doesn't it? Because it's a graveyard built on top of a Native American burial ground.
Yeah, it does get progressively silly throughout the films.
But I thought in Poltergeist, the actual main problem, or at least implied problem, is they moved the gravestones but not the graves.
Yeah, the bodies are still under there.
Yeah, and that's what's causing all the problem. Whereas this is, we've just paved over the refuse of modern life with an ideal community. I'm not quite sure where I'm going with that, but it's interesting how close to the surface it is.
But hey, at least you stop people digging in their lawns so no one will ever find out.
Yeah, I suppose you do have to wonder then, is the enforcement mechanic more to stop anyone figuring out what the dark secret is?
It does look beautiful. Their house looks lovely.
I'm sure whatever community it's filmed in is very nice, but it's that the distressing conformity of it. It looks very beautiful, and that's fine. But should you want to deviate from that, you can't.
It's how easy you can target someone as well, because 2 people are targeted over the thing because they have a light blown in their porch.
Yeah, that kind of specificity that's quite horrifying, really, that level of conformity. I'm guessing, I do think the one thing that felt a bit weird is when Scully goes out for that walk with the dog.
Yeah.
One thing is, and this also comes up in Alpha, is it's weird how the writers don't refer to each other, because you think Scully might mention she had a dog in one of these 2 episodes. Like, even Queequeg was not dissimilar to the dog.
They're totally different sort of dogs. They're both small dogs.
They are small dogs, but, Scully, I'd sort of say, I had a dog like this one time, or I had a dog myself. I lost it to tragic circumstances. I'd quite like to experience it again. But no one mentions Queequeg at all.
Poor Queequeg.
Poor Queequeg. But the other thing is, there's the implication about all the curfews and cut-offs and everything, not going outside at night. And it seems to be fine for her to walk her dog at night, and I'd sort of say that feels like one that you sort of get gotten on.
Yeah.
I know, it just feels a bit of an oversight, really, doesn't it?
Maybe there's an exception if you're walking under 16 pounds of pet, or however they word it.
Oh, yes, could be that. Was it 16 pounds of pet total or something, isn't it?
It's Big Mike's a veterinarian, and he says to Scully, "Oh, I'd be happy to give advice if you want a dog, so long as it's not more than 16 pounds for the pet."
It,
yeah.
We should talk about Big Mike, because I do feel he's like one of the slightly awkward bits.
You think?
Well, I like that Mulder and Scully instantly shoot down the cover story. Oh, he's had to go out of town. No, we called his office. They don't know where he is.
Yeah.
But then I think you asked the question of, where has he been for the last 3 days?
I've got to assume he's hiding in the sewer.
Yeah, but...
because that's where they find his caduceus.
Yeah. It just feels that just kind of just gets glossed over completely, doesn't it?
But he must be coming out because you've got to assume he's the one who keeps foiling Mulder's plans to attract chaos.
Yeah. And then no one notices this guy who's covered in garbage coming and fixing Mulder's postbox in seconds and stealing the pink flamingo.
Well, it's how maimed he is as well. That really gruesome prosthesis on Mike, when he survived his first attack, apparently took 4 hours to apply to the actor, and he had to wear it for 12 hours solid because the contract with ER, he could only spare like a couple of days for filming this. So you've got this huge guy, because he is enormous, the guy who plays Big Mike, walking around with literally huge claw marks across his face and neck. He's apparently survived like that in a drain without succumbing to massive infections over the course of a few days.
Yeah, and on the back of that, we have to sort of say, how do you survive the encounter with the tulpa, given there's a blood spray, and while we're meant to connect that to the other blood they find later on, which is just garbage, did all that come out of the tulpa? I mean, what did he do to it to spray that everywhere?
Well, it can't all come from the tulpa because Mike has those huge gouges in himself.
So how did he survive? Because that was a lot of blood, if that's blood. I don't know. It's one of these, you do wonder if Big Mike wasn't meant to survive, but they realised they needed someone to explain to Scully what's going on. And we do have one of the worst Scully did not see moments we've had for a long time.
Where she just doesn't leave the house in time.
Yeah, and it just sort of... Well, it also gets thrown into a cupboard with the shutters down so you can't see the tulpa burst into the room.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we could talk about Mulder and Scully's married couple life and how this episode feels like the first time in a while that you've got someone who's going to say Mulder and Scully can't work as a couple.
I believe the kind of idea behind this episode was people thought that fans would really eat up seeing Mulder and Scully actually married. And this was the logical way that they thought, hey, if we just put them undercover, we could write a story like this that shows them as a couple like the fans want.
For me, I would sort of say, this isn't what I wanted. Because you kind of want them forced to pretend to be married all the time, not just in public. You need some other mechanism to make them behave like married. There needs to be a third person inside the house, basically.
Yeah.
And this is the whole, we're pretending to be undercover, and we're doing a show for the neighbours, and then as soon as we're in private, we basically just stay away from each other.
So you're wanting this to be more like Spaced?
I think Spaced would be a better... Yeah, actually, yes, Spaced would be a better one with the whole fake sex noises and all the rest of it they have to keep doing.
So to explain this to an American audience, Spaced is a very, very good UK comedy where a couple who have only just met pretend to be married in order to get a flat together.
Well, not met, they're a professional couple. They're not necessarily married, but they are a couple.
But largely they have to keep this up in private because their landlady lives in the same flat.
Yeah. And the ultimate joke is that basically the whole ruse was not needed because that was a mistake on the
house listing.
House listing, because when you stop and think about it, the landlady would not care if they were a professional couple at the best of times, given her nature. But anyway, but that's the point of, I don't see how fans get a kick out of it, because you're not seeing them actually do a married couple thing, you're seeing them undercover. And then you've got things like Mulder's kind of weird flirting, and then Scully's bedtime routine, and Mulder doesn't react well to that, and they don't sleep in the same bed.
You do have some really, really quite entertaining domestic moments, and it's largely when Mulder's putting on this really, really over-the-top show for people, like when they have the dinner with the Schroders.
Yeah.
And when they first arrive, and the realtor kind of mispronounces their fake name and stuff like that. And they've got the adorable nicknames for each other.
Yeah.
Which in Scully's case is Poopy Head.
Yes. I mean, and that's fine as part of it. The problem is that it doesn't follow through, and the episode doesn't present it as anything but an act they're doing.
Mm.
So I don't understand how fans are meant to get a kick out of this, other than you can say, in this episode, Mulder and Scully pretend to be married. They don't act like it.
I just thought it was really kind of fun.
No, I'm saying it's not kind of fun, but I'm saying if you're one of these people who actually is really invested in Mulder and Scully's relationship.
They loved it.
Okay. I don't understand why.
The episode aired to rave reviews, and it is a firm fan favourite. People loved this kind of depiction.
Okay. I mean,
it is just you.
I like the episode too. I just feel you could have done something more with it. Do we want to explain the joke about the names? Because it's not one that actually translates. Well, I don't know if translates the right word. It's myself. I don't think that bit of pop culture is ever really sort of established over here.
It's an American series, though, and it would probably have traction in America.
Yeah, but basically it's a joke that falls flat for us, because we just think it's a weird science term.
Rob and Laura Petrie are the main characters in the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Yeah. And the most I know about the Dick Van Dyke Show is because of WandaVision, and I resent knowing anything about WandaVision.
You do, of course, know who Dick Van Dyke is.
I know who Dick Van Dyke is.
But yeah, it also works nicely for Scully, I guess, even if you don't get the Dick Van Dyke reference of, Petrie, like the dish, you've still got the science reference in there.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
it does kind of sound like the lame name that Scully's thought up with little imagination.
And that's what I thought the joke was. I didn't realise it actually had this whole other joke to it. It was going, of course, how have the neighbours not picked up and just said, wait a minute, there's no way you've got that name.
I just think it's got a wonderful humour in the episode, and a lot of it is carried by just watching Mulder's chaos ensue as he keeps trying to break the rules just to see what will happen.
Yes, and the increasing...
Because it just starts off with a lawn flamingo and builds up to him bringing in a mechanical digger, in part to see if he can find the Kleins buried in their front lawn, but under the guise of making a reflecting pool, because there are rules about a swimming pool, but no rules say you can't have a reflecting pool.
Yeah, I do like that, and the fact that he's being utterly blasé and sort of kind of head empty, no thoughts, while the guy's panicking, and it's even the sort of most out there person is going to start picking up on something's wrong. But I do like his resistance to it of, you're going to have to spell it out to me because I'm not going to back down on this because there's no reason for what you're doing.
I think the first initial point, well, obviously as the viewer, we know something's wrong because we've seen the Kleins get attacked after they put up the whirligig.
Yeah.
But with Mulder, it's just Win Schroeder's sheer panic with the basketball hoop is the first sign.
Yeah.
And how, at first it just seems like it's against the rules, you can't have one of them. But the increasing agitation he gets when the basketball hoop goes up just before curfew and stuff, you realise the whole, no, this is beyond this. He's trying to save Mulder's life without telling him what he's doing.
Yeah. It is the sort of culture of secrecy which causes all the problems, because it's just really stupid to sort of not be explained to someone that, if you break these rules, you're going to die.
But at the same time, they really have no choice, because when it looks like Mike is going to go against Mr. Gogolak, he's immediately bunked off.
Yes.
So at which point everyone else would fear it's, even if you disagree with Mr. Gogolak, you can't say anything or act against him.
No.
Because he holds all the cards. And in doing so, he's actually a very scary villain.
He's one of these villains where you're actually kind of lucky he's doing something as low-key as a housing association, because on any larger scale, that's absolutely petrifying level of control.
It's the scariness as well. We've said it in characters like the guy in Unruhe. It's the villains that you can imagine existing in the real world as well. You can imagine somebody with this mentality and, being violent enough to kill to maintain his perfect controlled world.
Yeah.
Whereas you can't necessarily envision something like Tombs or the Host existing. Mr. Gogolak's a very realistic villain.
This is very true.
He's just a realistic villain who has access to a supernatural entity.
Yeah, realistic villain using the most unrealistic method of enforcement you can imagine.
I understand, though I've never seen it, that there is a very similar movie called The Colony, which starred John Ritter, which shows you a bit how old it was. But it's the same idea of a man moves into a homeowners association with 1,000,001 rules and learns that it's kind of a pretty front over this kind of dark heart. Though, as far as I'm aware, The Colony is not a supernatural film. It's the same kind of idea and progression to it.
I can see that, yeah. Well, it's fairly safe to say we're never going to move into someone. I don't think you could never afford it. We're not the right kind of people for this kind of thing.
I don't think we even really get them so much in the UK. They do exist, but not on that kind of scale.
Yeah, they're very, very isolated here and there kind of thing. I don't even know if they hold together very well, or they sort of get split up, given that you don't get that kind of vast tracts of things held by one person like that.
In the UK, we don't really have that idea of small communities like that. We have villages.
Yeah.
And that's the closest you've got, and that's an entirely different animal.
I mean, you can't make the case that it's the difference in histories, where how far back the UK settlements can go versus America has a pretty hard cut-off in most places.
Yeah, I guess it's when you're looking back. I read somewhere it's why cowboys are so romanticized and stuff, because this is about as far back as the history of white people go in America.
Yeah, this is the equivalent of the chivalric romance.
Yeah, like we'd have medieval knights.
Yeah, and none of the... Well, yeah, they're all basically as fictitious as everything else, because it's not very similar at all to real life. Do we have much else about Arcadia, or shall we get into dogs?
Yeah, I don't think I've got a lot to say about Arcadia, but it's in part because I think it's an incredibly strong episode, and I think you're being overly critical on this one, to be honest. I think it's one of the best episodes we've seen in this season so far.
Oh, no question about that.
It's tremendously good fun. It's actually surprisingly scary. I remember when I first saw this one as a teenager that the opening bit I thought was absolutely terrifying.
Yes, it actually is directed as a proper horror thing. I'd say, I'll clarify, I do very much enjoy the episode. I do think it's a lot of fun. I just felt like I don't understand what the certain fans get out of the Mulder and Scully relationship thing. They found something in there, not for me, but fair enough, you do you.
The one thing I will criticise, and I do like parts of it again, is the ending of the episode I think is very abrupt.
I don't understand why Mr. Gogolak dies.
No, that's the bit I like.
Oh, you like that? Okay.
Yeah, I like Win Schroeder turning on him.
Oh, no, yeah, that was fine, but no, why he kills him.
The fact that you had Win Schroeder, who was his loyal lackey, who now thinks that Mr. Gogolak, whether he did or not is unclear, had an attack on Win Schroeder's wife.
Yeah.
So therefore the wife then convinces Schroeder just to leave him. Essentially, his rules become his undoing.
Yes.
I think that is a really sound death and the perfect way to dispatch that villain. To have him, die at the hands of his monster.
Yes, I mean, Frankenstein as usual.
For breaking the rules as well. I mean, he was out there after curfew, chained to that letterbox.
That comes back to my top point about the dog again, though, because if it was purely being out there out of curfew, I mean, I think that could have done with a little bit more illustration, like maybe zoom in on the rules at the end of it or something, just show the whole no person should be outside after such and such an hour.
But at the same time, I do think that ending comes very abruptly, and I think it was in part the fact that there is no physical way we can defeat the tulpa unless something happens to Gogolak. And as the heroes, you can't have Mulder or Scully kill him.
No. And I do kind of think we should be little bit beyond Scully not being able to see the monster, because even if she saw it crumble to dust, she's going to have other explanations for that. I mean, given she's seen literal flying saucers and alien features at this point, showing her the tulpa is not a problem.
True. But yeah, I do think that you're a bit overly harsh on this rather excellent episode that I have very little I can pick fault at.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to be overly harsh. It was just some bits of it didn't work for me. But I mean, I understand other people like it a lot. It's just that I'm not quite sure what you're getting out of it, but that's fine. How do you feel about cryptids?
I like cryptids a lot. Can we have Mothman?
No. This came up before. I said before, we never get a Mothman episode for some reason.
I can keep hoping. Maybe you've just forgotten the Mothman episode, and I'll get it eventually.
Maybe. I don't think that's... Well, I would say that's kind of in keeping better than it is.
Okay, if I can't have Mothman, I want a real Chupacabra.
Okay. Might be able to look on that one too.
Antler rabbits.
No.
You're going to give me something lame, aren't you?
I am. I'm going to give you the fictitious cryptid, which sounds like a stupid contradiction in terms, really, doesn't it?
Fair enough. I guess I'm getting our one Chandol then.
You are. Oh, we can get into that in a minute. But first, Alpha, of course, directed by Peter Markle, written by Jeffrey Bell, and first broadcast on the 28th of March 1999. Guest stars. We'd forgotten this guy was in here, watched him turn up on screen and said, "He looks a lot like Andrew Robinson. It can't be Andrew Robinson." Oh, it is Andrew Robinson.
I love him.
Andrew Robinson as Dr. Ian Detweiler. His first role was in Dirty Harry.
Oh, okay.
Where he was the Scorpio Killer.
Oh, was he?
Yeah, I never noticed.
Oh.
I think you know him for something else.
Hellraiser.
No.
Garrick.
Nope.
Go on.
Pumpkinhead 2.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what my first thought was.
He's the sheriff.
He is the sheriff in Pumpkinhead 2, yeah.
Yeah, okay, he's also in Hellraiser, and he's Garrick in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But did you know he also directed 2 episodes of Voyager?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, which is a weird one. Not in them, but he directed them.
I think I should note again that Hellraiser is a fantastic film and he's absolutely spectacular as Larry in it.
Yes, it's a shame he never got back for the sequel.
True.
The first sequel, anyway. You can sort of skip the rest of them. But there's also Melinda Coulier, who played Karen Berquist, who the only thing I've seen her in is Star Trek Next Generation.
Oh, okay. She's also the wife of the director, I believe.
Ah, okay. Well, we have things to say about her. Thomas F. Duffy was Jeffrey Kahn.
That's the sheriff.
That's the sheriff, who was in Wagons East, the bizarre anti-settler film, where everyone gets tired of life on the frontier and goes back to civilization.
Fair enough.
John Candy's last film.
Okay.
And it shows because they've had to edit round his death.
Because
he did die in the making of it. Independence Day and Lost World. But of a more interesting variety, we have James M. Connor, who played Jake Conroy.
Okay.
Now, this obviously won't mean anything to you yet, but he's in Parks and Rec. But oh, so much more interesting, he's in Community. And he's someone you'll recognise in Community.
Winger.
No. He is, in all honesty, in 3 episodes, Subway's representative.
Subway, eat fresh!
Eat fresh. He's that guy. He's also in Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But then it gets into a weird era, which I wouldn't have seen coming, because he does voice work.
Okay.
Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 13.
Okay.
Third Birthday, Parasite Eve 3. Dragon Age Origins, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
Okay.
Watchmen, Command and Conquer 3. The B-Movie.
Okay.
Scrubs.
Yeah.
And Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Huh.
I know, I think he stole it with Subway, really. So would you like to tell us... Well, would you like to describe the approximate defense of Alpha?
I can certainly give it a go. As always, largely ad-libbed from Wikipedia. Our episode this time begins on a Chinese cargo freighter in the South Pacific, where we see 2 of the workers inspecting a crate which turns out to have an animal inside. When the ship reaches the port of Los Angeles, the authorities find that the 2 men are missing. They eventually open up the crate to find their maimed bodies inside, but the animal is nowhere to be found. Mulder receives word of this strange event from a woman called Karen Berquist, who is an expert on canine behaviour. He and Scully head off to investigate the ship with the help of a San Pedro officer called Jeffrey Kahn. They arrive at the port to speak to the man who imported it, who is a cryptozoologist called Ian Detweiler. Detweiler explains to them that the dog is called a Wanchang Dole, a species that was believed to be extinct, and is therefore incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. Meanwhile, in Bellflower, California, a man hears his dog barking in the backyard. He lets it into the house but goes outside to investigate what it was barking at. He sees the shadow of another larger dog, however, when he goes to chase it off, he can't find it. When he returns to his house, he finds that his pet has been killed, and he is attacked by this wolf-like dog with glowing red eyes, which has gotten into his own home. Mulder and Scully soon receive word of this attack and begin investigating. Mulder believes that the dole was responsible and that it may have near-human intelligence. Mulder and Scully also visit Berquist to get an idea of what a kind of dog's behaviour would be like. Berquist is a bit sceptical about whether the attacks could have been killed by a dog, because she believes that kind of this level of devious murder is more of a human thing than a canid thing that would not show this kind of behaviour. In the meantime, we see a dog catcher chasing a stray through a warehouse when he sees a man enter the building. Although obscured by smoke or mist, the man transforms into the dole and attacks the dog catcher. Mulder and Scully arrive at the scene with Berquist in tow. They find the dole's footprints, and it's revealed that it has 5 toes rather than the usual 4 you would expect for a dog. Later that night, Detweiler heads to a vet's office to get tranquilizers, apparently intent on recapturing the dole without killing it. The vet later goes into the kennel area of his practice and is attacked by the dole but manages to escape, locking the dole in the kennels behind him. Dog catchers arrive soon after and open fire on the creature, but the fallen animal turns out to be a St. Bernard dog that had been brought there by its owner. The vet tries to operate and save the creature, but Scully then hears screams coming from the kennels. It's revealed that the vet has been attacked. We as the viewer see that the St. Bernard is actually the dole. It can shapeshift into different kinds of dogs. Scully begins to question Berquist's motives. She notes that she was the reason that Mulder decided to look into this investigation and begins to suspect that she has feelings about him. Mulder, however, is completely oblivious to Berquist's affections and begins to suspect Detweiler after learning that he had been at the vet's office. Mulder believes that he is actually the dole and is tranquilizing himself in an attempt to stop the killing. Mulder asks Khan to confront Detweiler, however Khan is attacked and severely injured and is sent to hospital. Mulder then visits Berquist as he realises that she knows more than she's been letting on. Berquist reveals that she also first suspected Detweiler as soon as she saw him. She was trying to protect the dole because she was worried people would kill it, but now has realised that there is no choice. She also tells Mulder that it is likely to return to the hospital to finish off Khan. Mulder is worried about this and tells Scully to keep an eye on Khan, though Scully is very sceptical. That evening, Berquist hears something in the woods outside her house. She goes upstairs to retrieve a tranquilizer gun, but Detweiler, in the dole's form, enters her bedroom and attacks her. She sets the gun aside and challenges the dole. As he attacks, they both fall out the window behind her. Mulder and Scully arrive on scene shortly after as Mulder realises that Berquist lied to get him away from her house. He finds both Detweiler and Berquist's bodies. Detweiler is impaled in human form on a spike of the fence. Back at the office, Mulder receives a package from Berquist. It is an I Want to Believe poster, identical to the one he lost in the fire that he had previously seen hanging in Berquist's office.
Thank you. It's been a while since we've had an actual train wreck on the series.
We are, I think. It's probably not the low production values of Tesos dos Bichos, but it's a kind of similar feel, I feel.
Well, I would say yes, because as I think and realised watching through it the second time, is like, this is the second episode that feels like a rip-off of The Relic, and it's possibly not quite as inept as Tesos dos Bichos, but it's not much better.
I think it's just that Dracula-esque opening, because The Relic also has a sequence that's a lot like this.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying that they're not pulling from a common source, but it's weird the X-Files keeps on seemingly going back to The Relic as a source for things, and not understanding it didn't work last time, it's not going to work this time.
The opening also made me think of a segment called The Crate from one of the Creepshow movies.
I know what you mean, yeah.
Which has a similar one with the large gorilla-esque animal kept in a crate.
Yeah, but I think The Crate is a lot more effective on its runtime and actually a lot scarier than this one.
Yeah, oh, no question.
I mean, to start off, the major point is Andrew Robinson is wasted in this episode. I mean, he's doing great with what he's got, but he should be a better villain.
Yeah. He's so blatantly the villain as well, just on the basis of the casting.
Yes, and also just from the second he shows up on screen. And I don't understand the logic of this episode. Let me get this straight. We don't know what happens in China, because the whole premise of this episode is just completely mangled anyway. Somehow a box is put onto that cargo ship, destined for Los Angeles and to go to Detweiler.
Mm-hmm.
2 workers are for some reason really intrigued with what's in there, or have seen there's a dog in there or something, and are messing around with it.
At first they believe it's a tiger.
Yeah, but they know something's in there, so they're going to mess around with it. They see a thing, guy kicks it and thinks he's killed it, so they open the box up and kind of stare blankly before they get grabbed.
Yeah.
Does that imply that they saw Detweiler inside the box? Anyway, but then the next bit is where I really lose track of everything, because Mulder and Scully arrive on the scene of the crime, and Detweiler is there looking at the box, and he says, I'm the person the box was being sent to, I should have been contacted the moment it arrived in port. Say, okay, but if they'd contacted you as soon as it arrived in port, you're in the box, you can't come and pick up the... This is like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. So what happens when they take the rabbit into the castle? Well then, Lancelot, Galahad and I will jump out of the rabbit.
Yeah.
Who will jump out of the rabbit? Lancelot, Galahad and... What if we put a large wooden badger? I'm sorry, I don't understand what Detweiler's plan was here, because I can't... He
doesn't apparently have an assistant or anything that could come and collect it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it like it could have been a rewrite thing, where he had an assistant at one point, and he was in so little they basically combined him into Detweiler, but apparently without realising that this doesn't make any sense.
It's also, we don't go whole Dracula on this of... The Wan Chan doll was in the box, I presume, murdered the people, locked them in the box, and has wandered off where? Has it just been sat obediently on the ship when we've seen it's just a remorseless killing machine any other time?
Well, yeah, but then, if it's also Detweiler, did he transform back into human form on the ship, but only apparently realises that he is the doll halfway through the episode, when he gets the tranquilizers?
We don't know for sure as well, but Mulder infers that he turns into the doll at night. So during the day, you've just got a naked human wandering around the ship.
Yeah, what did he think this was? What do you think was happening here? What do you think when he was locked in the crate? The episode just is mind-boggling the more you think about it.
You know, some of the earlier episode ideas for this one were actually a lot more intriguing.
Yes, oh yeah. Do you want to go through those?
Yeah, the two other ideas for this episode were both discounted because the writer believed they would not be visually interesting. But the first one was going to be a reverse homeward bound, that's The Incredible Journey. So the idea is it's a family who have travelled thousands of miles to get away from a murderous pet, only to find that it's found them.
Yeah, I mean, that works fine.
And the other idea was it was going to be a child who was extracting bloody vengeance on people that wronged him through dogs in a local pound, that kind of manifested as like the physical form of this child's id.
Yeah, I mean, that works fine. I mean, you could have a great big fantasy dog that way.
Or a pack of them, even.
Or a pack of them, yeah. You could do a lot of things. And not as we kept pointing out while watching the episode, and I think this is the director's fault, because I don't understand how they did it. Make the dog look small. Because you said to me, that species would be actually pretty substantial.
No, dolls are really small.
No, dolls are, but the one they use in film.
Oh, the one in the film. Yeah, the creatures that they picked, and apparently they auditioned a lot of dogs, were wolf malamute hybrids.
Yeah.
And both wolves and malamutes, of course, are quite large.
And this dog looks like knee-high?
Yeah, it does look really small.
It's really odd what they've done. I don't understand how you managed to botch the filming so much that it's not threatening.
Yeah. But dolls themselves... the doll is a real species. It's an endangered species of Asian canid. But they're pretty small. They're more kind of like coyote-ish.
And the least threatening dog I've seen in a while. So, yeah, I think we've got two vectors already. The fact that the villain's plot makes absolute no sense. The species of dog has been filmed in such a way to make it non-threatening. The behaviour of Detweiler does not make sense to me. I can see him killing the two workers. That's fine. They've interrupted and they've let him out early.
Yeah.
Fine. The customs and excise guy is kind of the whole, wait, what? Because I think you said, if it impounded the dog or something, or been a complication or something, or done something to Detweiler.
Or you need an idea that all the people he's targeting have betrayed him in some way.
Yeah, some past betrayal or something. You know, no one will stand in the way of my progress.
He's found the doll and they've all staked a claim in it and it's going to be taken from him. A bit like the gorilla in Fearful Symmetry.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But we don't have that. We just have Detweiler killing people. We don't understand why.
He does kind of start to target specific people at the end, presumably when he's more in control, because he goes for both Khan and Berquist.
Yeah, and that's fine. It's just the early stage you're going, sorry, what? You've just killed this guy's dog. Who is this guy?
And a random dog catcher.
Yeah, and then you got the other bits of the dog, as Detweiler let himself into the house. Okay, we can do the human intelligence thing, but he doesn't realise he's a dog at this point. But he let himself into the house and then let himself back out again, which actually gets people to notice that it did this.
Yeah.
Did you what?
But according to the episode, dogs are far more intelligent than people anyway.
We'll get to her in a minute. She's a whole other headache. We'll get to her in a minute. I think we just focus on Detweiler and the doll. I mean, and then we get the tranquilizer stuff. Again, makes sense. This is what you do in a werewolf story, which is essentially is. And I do think that some of the problems are someone said, this is a bit like Shapes. Let's make sure we're nothing like Shapes. And they've destroyed the structure.
It's always a genesis in the werewolf story of the bit where you figure out you're the wolf and try to restrain yourself, like Oz in Buffy.
Yeah. I've never seen a werewolf story, though, where the person doesn't have the moment of realization, or that moment of realization is off screen.
Yeah.
And then he just comes in for tranquilizers, and Mulder has to conjecture an awful lot off of nothing.
Mm.
And then it's the tranquilizers don't even work. What are we going to do with any of this?
I'm not sure him just getting the tranquilizers would put me on to the suspicion that he's the wolf, because he's already enforced the fact of it's a rare animal and I don't want it dead, which is a logical reason for him to get tranquilizers.
Exactly. And then the cop is threatening to actually kill it, so yeah, that all makes sense as well. And then the bit that really staggered me and I'd forgotten completely about is the shapeshifting. The fact that it can disguise itself as a Saint Bernard. It's Detweiler, Doll, whichever one of you is in charge. Why are you not doing this all the time? You can escape scot-free. You don't have to look like that.
I tried to do some research into dolls as well, because they talk about its mystical symbolism in China and stuff. I could find very little legends about dolls online. I think in part it might be conflated by the fact that there is a creature in the H.P. Lovecraft mythos that's also called a doll. So when I was looking for dolls, legends, mythology, it just kept coming up with this monster.
That does not help.
But I think we may have conflated a bit with the Japanese kitsune. Because you've got the idea of this canine trickster, because even Berquist says at one point about it, fooling men and stealing their wives. And kitsune were notorious for kind of pretending to be women and bringing down entire nations by seducing feudal lords and things like that. So we've really got that kind of idea for this creature. Though kitsune are more often than not portrayed as being female.
Yes, and to be fair, I think a kitsune story would have made it a lot better.
Mm.
And Robertson can't be in it, but the shapeshifting, I don't understand why it can shapeshift from apparently one scene. Also the fact that it's on the table as St. Bernard after being shot by the cop.
Mm.
You can understand that sort of being a mistake or something and the doll has somehow got out, because it's a mystical creature. But he's presumably got anaesthetized. It cuts out the room. The doll wakes up, savages him, wipes all the blood off his muzzle, lies back down the table as a St. Bernard. Scully comes in, sees the dead body and goes out again. Or Mulder comes, sees the dead body and goes out again. And then it shapeshifts.
Yeah.
What is going on? And then you've got the classic werewolf bit at the end, though, where his dead body is in human form after he's been impaled on a stick.
Yeah.
And I think to talk about the ending, we're going to have to talk about Karen Berquist. And I thought Detweiler was a strange character, but she's got to be one of the most inexplicable NPCs the X-Files has ever had. What is going on?
Why is Mulder in touch with this person?
Yeah, it's like, we met her online. On what? I can understand you possibly forgetting a cryptid board, but she doesn't seem to care about cryptids.
She cares about dogs.
Yeah, so what board did you meet her on?
And we should probably note that the Wanshan doll, even in the sense of this episode, isn't really a cryptid. It's an extinct animal. It's like a thylacine.
Yeah, which is very different to a cryptid.
Yeah, well, like the thylacine, the coelacanth. It's when Mulder's absolutely perplexed by the fact it can still exist. We've seen creatures in this world, even large creatures like coelacanths that we assumed were extinct, and then you find one. It's not unheard of.
Yes, if you have fossil evidence, it's not a cryptid anymore.
Well, some people have some pretty strong evidence that the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine, actually, we believed it died out in the 30s, but people believe it might have lived as long as the 90s. There's pretty good evidence for that. Just because we don't have solid evidence it was seen, we can't prove this.
Yeah. These things happen.
Yeah.
And yet here she is, and she's got a crush on Mulder, and well, fair enough. And then we have Scully jealousy, which is, we haven't had this for a while, when Scully basically takes one look at this woman and says, nope, not having that.
Yeah. Oh,
it's so fast on the back of nothing.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Scully, we've seen Scully take a disliking to people in the past, often ironically before, like Bambi.
Yeah.
But Scully so fast decides that she doesn't like Karen Berquist, and we've never just seen her take such a disliking to someone. And she's kind of justified because Berquist tampering does kind of slow down the investigation.
But you mentioned Bambi, and it's kind of a sexist thing, but you kind of look at Bambi and you go, okay, Scully, I can see why you've got the whole, side-eyeing Mulder the entire time.
The sexy entomologist.
Everything about her screams exactly what she's meant to be doing, therefore. She's basically eye candy. Karen Berquist is really down to earth, very, well, not interested in humans, let's put it that way.
She's portrayed as being one of those people that like animals more than they like people, basically.
By a wide margin.
Just massively, massively antisocial, somewhat social anxious person.
And yet she's into Mulder. Our master of psychology not being able to pick up on any of her cues.
Even when she blatantly lies to him.
Yes.
After he's already proven that she was lying to him, and she lies to him again and he still believes her.
Yeah, and then he sort of waits, 5 hours or something in a hospital where the dog is not coming to murder the cop. But, I mean, that's not the thing we remember about Karen, though. We're going to have to say the specific thing that she says, and we went, what? Mulder, run away from this woman. She's clearly not well.
That dogs are more intelligent than people?
Yeah. Karen, what are you talking about? I can understand if you mean in a very certain context. Sure.
It should be noted, when we say how intelligent dogs are incredibly intelligent and they're capable of learning a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's a different intelligence to what you would consider if you were rating a human's intelligence. But on average, and again, varying between species, we say that a dog's mental abilities is equal to that of about a 2-year-old child.
Yeah.
So you're talking toddler-level intelligence and, the ability to kind of feel and express emotions, but not on those kind of higher levels.
Outside of Pet Sematary, very few 2-year-olds are a risk.
I love that for your example.
That's one of the only killer children thing I can think of.
No fair, Daddy, no fair. Yeah, Gabe is about as threatening as a 2-year-old gets.
And he's slightly older than that, so that's...
Oh, Gabe, I'd say, was about 3, maybe?
Yeah, he's still not huge, but yeah, for her to say this and for her to be taken seriously for a second is just baffling. And then we get Scully's encounter with her and we find out she's got lupus, which, lupus is a thing people suffer from, but these days is a punchline because of House, because you can never quite get beyond that again.
Also, that gives me a bit of pause. I kind of like the poetic irony of the wolf expert suffering from a disease that's name means wolf.
Yeah, it feels a bit on the nose still, though, doesn't it?
But at the same time, Scully diagnoses her with lupus due to her photosensitivity, which can be caused by a plethora of other things. And as part of the House joke about lupus is the fact that it's ungodly hard to diagnose.
Yeah.
So you would never assume someone had lupus looking at them.
Unless you're the one doctor in House who always says lupus.
Yeah, but
that's the joke.
It's usually the kind of disorder that you diagnose if you've ruled out everything else.
To be fair, this is before House came about, but this should still be in their technical advisor to say she can't make that call. Also, let's back up a bit, and again, Scully is not whatever they do in House. Oh, I can't remember what they're called. Diagnostic clinicians or something? His team are very, very, very kind of specific.
It's some kind of diagnostic medicine.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they call them.
But she is not one of them. They are trained to do this kind of thing. She does forensic stuff. It's that whole, she's a doctor. She can do all of it.
Yeah. We've commented on that Scully is the everyman scientist before.
We have, and the everyman doctor as well. And I think it was a few episodes ago we said, actually, that's insane. She can't possibly do that.
I thought there was a kind of interesting aspect of Berquist in the fact that she's basically otherkin.
Yeah, oh yeah, she is.
I think you called her a furry.
I said furry, but
she's not technically a furry, she's more otherkin. She's one of these people who feel like they're a dog in a person's body.
Yeah, and if that's absolutely fine. I mean, if that's how she feels comfortable, that's great for her. Don't listen to her about intelligence levels and all that. Don't touch her hand while she's operating the computer because she's going to read into that. I see, Karen. What do you like about this man? And she lured him over here because of the case. Did she wait for Detweiler to import a doll into the country? And then there's the other bit of Detweiler and Berquist know each other, and that's treated as a revelation. And now on reflection,
they don't know each other. They know she knows of him, I think.
There was
He
a photo
doesn't
of the
know
two of
her.
them.
There?
There was a photo of the two of them.
Oh, I missed that. So they do actually know each other.
They do know each other in some capacity, but that doesn't go anywhere. I would say, I mean, it might tell you why he knows where she lives, but I can't make anything out of that either. And then I will go to the death thing, and I don't understand the death either. So she sends Mulder and Scully on a wild goose chase.
Yep.
With some of the worst lies possible, because it's still one of those, you can put an armed guard in the hospital, and you can also stay with her as the low priority target to make sure she's still safe. I mean, this is how people do these things. But then I don't understand Karen, because she gets a tranquilizer. No, she unlocks her doors, leaves them open, goes upstairs, gets a tranquilizer gun, loads the tranquilizer gun, puts it down. Detweiler leaps at her, pushes her out the window. She hits the ground and dies through whatever reason, and he manages to impale himself on a fence post. What?
I know, right?
What was that? Oh, we can talk about the poster.
Oh, the I Want to Believe poster.
I mean, that headshot that Mulder gave Scully the dress for back in Shinga apparently has burned down as well.
True.
I mean, I do get it from a point, because it's the bit of set dressing you can point to not being there. Although, we've seen the X-Files office this is like the third time we've seen the office since the fire. And Spender ain't putting that poster back up again. And we don't know that Mulder can't go and buy another copy of the poster from the shop he bought it from in the first place, which is what Chinker implied. And I do kind of get the poster is a connection between Mulder and Karen, but I didn't think Karen was into UFOs. I mean, that actually doesn't come up as a topic, because that could be how Mulder met her.
Yeah.
She also believes in UFOs, but then she's a dog lover, so I don't understand how that works. And she believes in alien dogs. Maybe.
Dogs are so intelligent because they came from space originally. They have an extraterrestrial ancestor.
Why not? Let's go absolutely nuts and give that as a reason why they know each other. That would be fine. But we don't get that. She just happens to own the significant poster. And then send it to Mulder before she died. Which, when did she raise this stuff? Because she must have gone after that meeting with Scully. And because she's looking at it when she has that phone call. So you're telling me she took the poster down, rolled it up, took it to the post office, sent it off, came back home, unlocked her door, got a tranquilizer gun, and stood next to a window so Detweiler would attack her and kill her. Have I got this right?
Seems to be so.
I knew I always thought this was the worst possible episode of the X-Files, and it just doesn't disappoint, does it?
Do you want me to tell you how it could have potentially been worse?
Go on, and let's really sort of ground it down.
There's an alternate ending.
Oh my god, gone.
Okay, so 2/3 of the way through the episode, sheriff or officer, I can't remember which he is. Officer Khan is Dilophosaurus attacking Nedry style in the back of his car.
He really is, isn't he?
Yeah, it very much is. He is in hospital for the rest of the episode, with Scully watching over him for a while. At the end of this episode, after you'd had the bit with Mulder and the I Want to Believe poster, it was going to cut back to Khan in hospital, when his eyes would open and would glow with that same red effect as we'd seen the dolls previously. So, he's been possessed or infected next. Apparently you can even see that on the back of some of the old DVD cases.
Oh my god.
A picture of that.
I mean, on the one hand, yes, you acknowledge that you have written a werewolf story. On the other, shouldn't there be a lot of other werewolves? I mean, okay, you killed the other ones, but generally that's...
It depends if it's possession or not. If it's just one spirit, it's jumped into him next, I guess.
But
why him?
Why him of all of them? And I also feel it's kind of like, there's an interesting implication in the episode that they don't do anything with again, and it feels like they should, because it's Karen says about Detweiler that he did not catch the doll.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that as a whole. You can't possibly capture this spirit thing that's evasive. It's not a crypt. We keep calling it cryptid, and it's not even a cryptid in the context of the episode. So that's really bad. I do like the whole. You can't possibly have caught it, and that seems to be indicating that she knows that it's possessing him.
Yeah.
But then was he bitten? I mean, we have to assume he was based on the alien ending. But given the ending's not in place.
Or possessed. The full relic way of... He becomes a Cathoga in the relic because of some kind of native ritual that's turned him into their protector.
Yeah. Wait, this is the stuff that Tesla Suspicious kept on trying to imply, and then you got to the end of the episode and went, oh, he was just on drugs.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I think this is worse than Tesla Suspicious, given that as stupid as Tesla Suspicious was, it was kind of coherent. It wasn't good, but at least it made a degree of sense.
I guess you've got a potentially more interesting monster in the Wanshan doll, as opposed to alley cats.
Yeah, but you've got vengeful jaguar spirit that we also know that they couldn't afford to do.
Yeah.
And that's why it's the alley cats. That was a practical complication with filming.
I did read a criticism of this episode, and this was, I think, Robert Sherman and Lars Peterson, the wanting to believe a critical guide people again. But they pointed out that no matter how good the effects are, and, the effects are reasonable in this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
There is a limit to the number of times a dog with glowing red eyes pouncing on a human can be made interesting.
Yes. I'd actually say, on the back of that, you don't even get that shot.
It never pounces, it just kind of growls.
Yeah, then there's a really awkward camera trick or some editing trick where it seems to lunge forward and it's clearly not moving.
Yeah.
And I think the only time it actually leaves at anyone is when Karen dies. And that's just a catastrophe in terms of blocking anyway.
You can make dogs quite scary in horror. I mean, look at Cujo.
Yes.
Or, sticking with Stephen King again, The Sundog, one of his shorts, is actually quite terrifying.
Yeah.
This is not a scary dog.
No. Again, I think the problem is it doesn't look big. It looks quite diminutive, like you could plausibly throw a blanket over it and tackle it.
Which you take against Cujo, who was a rabid Saint Bernard.
Yeah, something big and powerful. This does not evoke big and powerful at any stage.
Mm.
It should, as you said, it's an actually large creature.
Well, no, as a doll, it should be a very small creature. But yeah, given that the creatures they're using to play it are wolf hybrids, wolf dogs can be massive.
Yeah.
You'd be expecting something big and quite fierce.
Yeah. There's some bizarre problems with, I don't know, is it lighting, camera angles? I don't know what they did to that to make it look so ineffective.
Mm.
Do we have anything else for this, or should we, quietly leave Alpha to his business and just find something else?
Let's move on and not speak of Alpha again until we talk about our least favourite episodes of the season.
Well, Alpha we started with a werewolf ripoff and then proceeded to ignore all the tropes of a werewolf film. Yeah. And that's why it doesn't make any sense, because it's
and
not
I think it suffers from the, I want to see that reverse Homeward Bound one, to be entirely honest. I think that sounded like a really decent, solid idea for an episode. To
be fair, I'm not totally sure how you work it in an X-Files context, because basically Mulder or Scully have to shoot a dog at some point.
Someone had to shoot the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Well, it's true. See, Hound of the Baskervilles, both great. There's a killer dog as well. Most versions of Hound of the Baskervilles, with one exception, do it really well.
It's just usually a big dog that's covered in glowing paint, isn't it?
Yeah, except for the BBC Sherlock, where it was a hallucination and everyone went, what? That's terrible!
Mm.
How could you not have the story with the great big dog? He just went out and bought a great big dog. It was really simple. We relent. Let's get out of here.
Good plan.
Yeah. If you would like to defend Alpha, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com. I'd be very interested to see why you think it deserves better than bottom 3 episodes of all time.
Yeah, I'm also curious. Please do let me know on social media if you think any episode in this season is worse than Alpha. I'd love to hear your reckoning. But you can find us on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42. We are on Mastodon at GetStrange42@universedon.com, or on Facebook, please search for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice by now, I also have a channel on Twitch TV called AdverseCamber42, where I stream live on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT or Saturdays at 5 PM GMT, playing whatever I'm currently playing on the PlayStation 5. I did just finish Yakuza Like a Dragon this last weekend, so now I am playing Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange. Find the first 4 parts of our Let's Play of the X-Files game. The 5th part will be coming in April, and that will be concluding of that game, with many, many deaths. And us killing a few people was necessary, kind of.
But mostly us dying.
Yeah, one of them was necessary. We had to shoot one guy in the back, and that feels really bad still.
He probably was only 2 days away from retirement at that.
He probably was. There's also our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, or our attempt to review Mulder and Scully by Catatonia, and upcoming things can include the X-Files novels, the comics, the other video game, trading card games, board games, and probably when we arrange our virtual tour of the X-Files Museum.
I believe the next thing we were thinking of doing was the novel Goblins.
Yes. For as little as $3 a month, you get access to everything. There are other tiers, but yeah, if you want to throw us a few dollars, that'd be great. Our theme music is Vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember...
Admit it, you just want to play house.